3 billion years ago, life began as the simplest microscopic components. It took millions of years for primates to emerge, and nearly 2 million more for Homo erectus to leave Africa, with brains larger than their ancestors. But the rise of our species into global dominance began 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, in the Sumerian city of Iraq. For millennia, humans survived by hunting and gathering, entirely dependent on the whims of nature. Iraq changed that. By crushing wheat and barley between stones to make flour, early citizens engineered a way to control their own food supply. The physical toll of that early agriculture was stark. The switch to strenuous, repetitive farming caused the average height of men to shrink from 5'9" to 5'3". Women saw a similar decline. The robust athletes of the past were replaced by smaller, less noticeable farmers. By committing to these crops, people became tied to the land. Survival no longer meant following herds across continents. It meant defending a fixed plot of dirt and relying on the geographical borders of a settlement. Civilization was born, but it required a severe biological compromise. We traded physical vitality and freedom of movement for a sense of permanence, seeking security against the constant threat of starvation. Around 3000 BCE, Sumerian king Gilgamesh ruled over this newly settled world. According to legend, he came to a stark realization: death is the one enemy human ambition cannot conquer. In Egypt, rulers channeled the sphere of mortality into stone. Pharaohs believed that if they preserved their physical form through mummification and built massive tombs, their spirits would rule in perpetuity, worshipped long after their physical demise. The Great Pyramid of Giza took 20 years to complete. The scale of these structures required a total mobilization of Egyptian society, built by thousands of peasants spending their off-seasons moving heavy limestone to guarantee one man's afterlife. Constructing monuments on this scale required deep organization. Entire societies were organized into strict social pyramids. Peasants and slaves at the bottom performed the manual labor, while bureaucrats, priests, and soldiers enforced the will of the pharaoh at the top. Over in Babylon, King Hammurabi carved this hierarchy into stone. A 7-foot-tall slab contained 282 laws, explicitly stating that a noble's bone was worth more than a commoner's, which in turn was worth more than a slave's. These early empires operated as systemic machines. They extracted the labor, autonomy, and very lives of the working masses to build enduring legacies, all so a select few could secure their immortality in stone. As centuries passed, the pursuit of legacy shifted toward ideological dominance. Greek city-states colonized the Mediterranean for resources, and later the Roman Empire sought absolute control over physical space. This expansion demanded ruthlessness. When Julius Caesar led his army across the Rubicon River, he defied the Roman Senate and ignited a civil war. He traded the republic's stability for the title of dictator for life. But physical empires proved fragile. Caesar was assassinated 2 years later. Eventually, the city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths. When the borders fell and the stone crumbled, the promise of earthly permanence shattered. In the wake of collapsing empires, humanity sought something indestructible. From a child born in a stable in Bethlehem to a merchant meditating in a cave near Mecca, new ideologies spread across continents. They offered ordinary people what kings failed to provide: eternal life in the afterlife. If monuments decay and armies retreat, belief persists. Civilization pivoted from physical conquest to spiritual allegiance, recognizing that the most enduring empires are built in the mind. With centralized Roman authority gone, Europe fractured. Existential threats emerged from the north as Viking raiders sailed across the sea, pillaging unprotected monasteries and burning villages along the Rhine. Faced with constant violence, ordinary farmers made a calculation. They gave up their freedom, binding themselves to the land and paying heavy taxes to local lords in exchange for physical protection. This dynamic formed the bedrock of feudalism. The Italian writer Niccolò Machiavelli later observed exactly why this system worked. He noted that love and loyalty are easily broken for personal advantage, but fear is preserved by a dread of punishment that never fails. This primal dread was weaponized globally. Leaders like Genghis Khan used calculated terror to sweep from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian Sea, slaughtering those who resisted to ensure the rapid submission of those who remained. Time and again, the masses accept the heavy yoke of a social pyramid. The immediate, terrifying reality of violent death consistently overrides the abstract desire for personal liberty. A cultural reawakening swept Europe, placing individual human expression at the center of progress. This was the Renaissance, a pursuit of agency and cultural legacy outside the traditional constraints of religion and empire. Mastery of science and light allowed creators to achieve their own form of immortality. Leonardo da Vinci captured the elusive flicker of a smile, blending optics and anatomy into a painting that has survived centuries. Michelangelo chipped away at a block of marble to reveal David, elevating the human form to a state of flawless, godlike perfection that continues to draw millions of eyes today. This renewed focus on the individual extended to the law. Documents like the Magna Carta formally challenged the absolute, divine authority of kings, demanding fair trials and protection from arbitrary imprisonment. Centuries later, the Industrial Revolution reorganized society yet again. As powerful nations rushed to exploit global resources, vast working classes were pushed into factory labor, sparking radical new philosophies. Karl Marx formulated a vision where the workers themselves owned the means of production, rejecting the elite capitalists who extracted their labor for profit. Yet, despite these advances in art, law, and economics, true agency remained difficult to grasp. The specific mechanisms of control changed, but the underlying power dynamics adapted, keeping the working masses within a hierarchical system. In the early 20th century, these industrialized empires collided. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 triggered a complex web of alliances, detonating a global conflict. The working class was funneled into muddy trenches, facing machine guns and artillery. Millions of ordinary lives were sacrificed to feed a mechanized war engine designed to protect national borders. 2 decades later, the drive for expansion reached its most lethal extreme. Adolf Hitler sought to forge an empire larger and more enduring than Rome, systematically exterminating millions to clear a path for his vision of dominance. It ended in complete devastation. By 1945, the capitals of Europe were reduced to rubble. The modern imperial dream collapsed under the weight of its own artillery. Humanity ended the conflict with the invention of absolute, instantaneous mass death. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki showed that we now possessed the power to terminate our own history in a single flash. Faced with the capacity to destroy our own world, we used the heights of computing and aerospace engineering to physically leave the planet altogether. But no matter how far we travel, those footprints in the lunar dust carry the exact same weight as the ones pressed into the desert sand thousands of years ago. We have traveled from hand-cranked mills to spacecraft, expanding the reach of our laws and the scale of our science. Yet, the underlying paradox remains. We continue to build empires, both physical and technological, in an eternal effort to outrun the mortality that has defined us since the first stones of Uruk were laid.
Did the development for agriculture help humans settle down and build the world's earliest civilization? So please guys answer my question. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye and take care. And this question is literally guys very easy. Really this question is very easy. So try this my question answer. And first of all, thank you so much for watching this video. So goodbye and take care.